What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. It is Wednesday, February 23rd, and we are, of course, on YouTube. We're going to chat about some top 25 offensive free agents. You can watch the show on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6. If you're watching, smash that like button and tell us who you want your team to sign in free agency. Also hit that subscribe button and turn on alerts when Aaron Rodgers announces that he's retiring or announces that he's coming back. We'll I'm sure, have an emergency podcast. And I know that John Breech will be on that, and he is joining me today to break down free agents. Breacher, what's up, buddy?
You know, Brinson, knowing Aaron Rodgers, he'll announce it Saturday night at like 1:30 a.m. And we'll be getting on Instagram, the text message. You guys got an emergency podcast coming? I know it's 1:30 a.m. on a Saturday, but let's get that thing going.
I know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Rodgers really quickly. So we record this on Tuesday. Show comes out on Wednesday. Fortunately for us, we happen to record this after Aaron Rodgers joined Pat McAfee on the Pat McAfee Show on his YouTube channel, just like ours. We commonly have 100,000 people streaming our live podcast. That happens all the time. Just kidding. McAfee did have 100K. It's like 130K maybe at some point that jumped on there to watch the discussion.
That's about what we get anytime I'm on the show, right?
Yeah, pretty much. That's okay. It's the Breech bump. And I thought that I know I was prepared to be annoyed by Rodgers' appearance because, just to back it up, on Monday night, Aaron Rodgers posted a 4-page gratitude-filled Instagram post that made everyone think that it was cryptic. It was cryptic, right? Like, it was definitely a cryptic post, thanking Shailene Woodley, thanking Devonte Adams and Randall Cobb, thanking his coaches and people all, it was cryptic. It definitely set up the possibility that Rodgers was prepared to announce his retirement. I don't believe him when he said on Pat McAfee's show that he doesn't think about what the reaction will be when he posts something, because he posted a picture of Adams and Cobb without him in it. And he did explain it.
Well, what do you explain? Go ahead. Finish the explanation.
He explained that was the picture they sent him, because he usually stands between them, and then during the national anthem on the sideline, and then after the anthem they embrace and then they go play. And he said that they sent it to him, and he started crying when he got it because it meant so much to him in that game he missed because he was on the COVID list. So, I mean, that's a really good explanation for it. I don't believe that he doesn't think about how people will react to what he posts on social media, though.
Right, because I think the alternate, if you're just the outsider looking in and all you have is Instagram to look at and try and figure out what's going on, number one, you have to consider there were 10 pictures that he posted on Instagram, which is the most you can put on one post. The first 9 pictures all included Aaron Rodgers hanging out with friends or hanging out with Shailene Woodley. And then picture number 10, he's out of there. As in, it is understandable that someone would take that as some sort of symbolism that you go boom, boom through 9 straight pictures. And then Aaron Rodgers is gone in picture 10. And then also, to your point on kind of what he wrote in the message, it was very reflective, and you don't get reflective unless you're thinking about moving on, unless you're seriously considering that. So I absolutely think that this is, we get yelled at on Twitter for kind of reading too much into this stuff. But when you have a superstar like Aaron Rodgers, who might retire, who's sharing these 500-word Instagram posts with 10 pictures, and one of them doesn't include him, that's what we have to do. And so,
and the final one doesn't include him. As if to say, I'm out of it. Like, I'm gone. Yeah. I mean, it was hard not to read that into it. Rodgers claimed on the McAfee show that he had been doing a 12-day cleanse, which I need to look up. Pancha. Did you look it up?
I did.
Because it's disgusting.
Panchakarma, is that what it is?
Panchakarma is a method, according to Wikipedia.in, which sure, I guess I'll just the first link. I guess I'll just trust it, is a method of cleansing the body of all the unwanted waste after lubricating it. There are 5. Panchakarma are 5 in number. Hence, pancha, which means 5, and karma means procedures. The 5 karmas are vamenem, which is a induced vomiting, helps clear the upper gastro till the end of the stomach and part of the respiratory tract. Verichimum, induced purgation clears the lower gastro from the, basically you're puking and pooping for 5 days, for 12 days, excuse me, or I guess as long as you want, but you do like at least 5 days. It sounds, there's an oil enema that helps lubricate the rectal area and take out all the lipid soluble waste out through the anus.
Did you ever think we would be talking about Panchakarma on this podcast?
Sure
this is not the Panchakarma podcast.
Yeah,
Listen here talking about people having a double ender so they can go through with this therapy that helps you, I guess, feel better at the end.
And there's a lot of yoga and meditation. I mean, it sounds like,
for instance, I feel like one of us should try it.
Yeah.
I nominate you though.
No, thanks. I'll try the TB12 diet. It does sound like, I mean, I guess his explanation that he's been doing this, and I guess he was doing this like when he went up and accepted the MVP award, because that was within the last 12 days. Right? Wasn't it within the last 12 days?
No, I think so. Today's the 20. He did an interview on the 22nd, and the MVP award ceremony was on the 10th. So maybe he started
the Sunday after the MVP award.
Right. That was like the first day, or the day after he won was the first day.
So, I mean, I get it. You're doing yoga, you're doing meditation, you're cleansing your body. Your brain is in a different state of being. He had a lot of gratitude when he came out of it. And so he attempted to put the post to rest. Like, it wasn't about him. It wasn't about a retirement decision. However, a couple other things that he said in the interview. One, he mentioned that he and Brian Gutekunst are in a very good spot, and that he and Russ Ball and Matt LaFleur, like he told Pat McAfee he is in a very different spot than he was last year, and that they now currently have a good relationships across the board, and they had positive conversations coming out of the season. The Packers have maintained that if Rodgers wants to play, they will have him back. I think they've said that publicly, right?
Yes, all of them, the whole front office. Because a couple years ago it was a little hesitant because we have Jordan Love. Now they are all unanimously behind this, that if Aaron Rodgers wants to play, he is their starting quarterback.
Correct. And they and Rodgers, they have recently hired Tom Clements to come in and replace Nathaniel Hackett as the OC. He was in retirement. Rodgers, Rodgers, big fan of Tom Clements, and so like they've done all the things fairly necessary to induce Rodgers to come back. He also mentioned very pointedly, I thought, Breech, that he's like, today, I believe, he said this on Tuesday. He said, today, I believe, is the first day you can franchise tag players. And there's, one guy out there who's the best at what he does, number 17, maybe, which was implying you need to make sure Davante Adams is returning to Green Bay in 2022 if you want me to come back as well. So I took it. Am I missing anything from the interview, by the way?
No, I think that is a huge point too, because there was kind of a, again, we're insinuate things based on what Aaron Rodgers said, that if they don't get something done with Davante Adams, that could impact his decision. Because again, he's been pretty clear he's going to make this decision before free agency. Thought was that he'll make it before the franchise tag window closes on March 8th. So we're running out of time here, and the Packers are running out of time. So they got to get something done with Davante. And obviously they can't tag him. I don't think Davante wants that. And I don't think Rodgers wants that for Davante.
Yeah, I would guess that. I mean, I don't think Davante Adams is signing a long-term deal in Green Bay if Aaron Rodgers isn't coming back either, right? Like, he may want to do the franchise tag and do 1 year, then let Rodgers decide, and then maybe go hit free agency. Like, that's not a crazy idea if you're Davante Adams. You get a big contract. You get a big franchise tag, or a reasonable franchise tag.
I think Rodgers actually said in an he's done so many interviews in the past month, but I think he actually said, and I'll see if I can find it, that Davante Adams does not want the franchise tag.
Well, he said on McAfee's show, he said that, he's like, hopefully they can get a long-term deal done. Both sides want that.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, yeah. So, right. So if Rodgers is coming back, then Adams wants that long-term deal. And maybe the Packers, are trying to hammer out the long-term deal without utilizing the franchise tag because they know that he doesn't want that. They want to respect Davante Adams' wishes by not using the franchise tag if they can help it. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of factors that play into it, but I would take out of the interview that I think Aaron Rodgers is coming back for the 2022 NFL season, and he will play for the Packers. I also think that it is highly unlikely that Aaron Rodgers will play anywhere else if he does decide to return, as long as Green Bay wants him and can keep Davante Adams in the fold. I would think Rodgers is coming back to Green Bay or retiring and I would lean 70-30. He's coming back would be my takeaway from watching that interview with him.
Yeah. And you know what? The one interesting thing about this is the Shailene Woodley part where Obviously, we've seen reports. We've all seen reports the past couple weeks that they called off their engagement. They may have broken up. But Rodgers,
this is the other takeaway. Yeah.
Rodgers didn't hint at this at all. I mean, he talked about her in present tense as if they're still together. He alluded to her in his Instagram on Monday, kind of professed his love for her, credited her for the 2 MVPs he's won. And the reason I think that's interesting is I think
McAfee noted that right after the interview that internet sleuths told him or tweeted to the show that because there's a female laughing, and McAfee asked him, he said, "Is there a female laughing? Is there a woman laughing in your house there?" And he's like, "It was the TV." He's like, "Yeah, it was like Joy Behar. I'm watching The View." But people on the internet picked up that it was Shailene Woodley's laugh, and I mean, pretty clearly, I think that was sort of a part of the message too. To your point.
Well, but to go on those lines is I think TMZ was the one that reported that if they did break up, or one of Shailene Woodley's frustrations was that Aaron Rodgers was putting his job before the relationship, which, that Giselle has that same complaint about Tom. If you're going to be the best quarterback in the NFL, you are going to be putting an ungodly amount of hours into being the best quarterback in the NFL. And that's kind of the impact of that, is that you can't spend as much time with loved ones as you want. And so to your retirement point, that's one of those where Rodgers may be starting to think, if this is really the girl I want to marry and I can't give her what she needs because I'm playing football, then I think that would be something that draws him into retirement. But I do agree with you that I think he plays, and I think if he does play, it's going to be with the Packers.
And also on the Woodley thing, TMZ doesn't have to be wrong. They could have called off their engagement and still decide to stay together. Basically, like, to your point, they're having this discussion where she, thinks he's spending too, and he's like, "Look, I need one more. I want to play one more year. Let's pause the engagement and not deal with the getting married." She's like, "I want you to be involved in the process, the wedding process, all of this." So you're like, "Let's hold off on the engagement. We'll get, we'll just hit pause, and I'll do one more year of football, and then we'll go get married and live happily ever after," or whatever it is. Like that's an entirely plausible situation.
Yeah, and he'll be 40 by the time that next season would be 39, I think, in December, and so closing in on his 40th birthday, and especially if the Packers were to win a Super Bowl, I think that would absolutely be a wrap if he returns and that happened.
Yeah.
So it is. It's been an interesting Aaron Rodgers week.
Yeah, it sure has. I really would be surprised if I think he's coming back to play for the Packers. Just the way that he's speaking about it. But maybe he wants to go be a husband.
He said his next great challenge is being a dad.
There you go. Well, you can
see these bags under my eyes. It's from having a sick kid for 48 straight hours.
That's right. All right, let's segue right from Aaron Rodgers into top free agents, and that's an easy one to do. The article by Patrick Walker on CBSSports.com. Number one on the list. Number one on the list, Davante Adams. No brainer. But we should preface this by saying that we recorded this on 2/2/2/22. February 2nd, February 22nd, 2022. Rare, you get the 2/2/2/22. Two. Franchise tag window has just opened. A lot of these players will not be available on the free agent market because they will receive the franchise tag. For instance, I look at two very obvious names who will not be. Devonte Adams is not going to make it to the free agent market, assuming that Aaron Rodgers is coming back and that he wants to stay with the Packers. If for some reason they haven't worked out a long-term deal with Devonte Adams by March 8th, they will place the franchise tag on him. They're not going to let him get to free agency. Don't we agree on that?
Yeah. They would risk losing Aaron Rodgers. It would throw the whole organization into disarray if Aaron Rodgers or if Devonte Adams was to leave. So there's no way they're going to let him get to free agents. But you know what the thing though is if they hit him with a tag, you're talking about over $18 million for 1 year. This team is not in a good salary cap situation. They have the Aaron Rodgers contract to deal with. So it does feel like no matter what they do with Devonte Adams, they're kind of going to be all in for 2022.
Right. Now, I will say that if you look at the numbers, the Packers can do some cuts and some basic restructuring and get down fairly quickly where they're in fine salary cap space. But yeah, that franchise tag for Adams is not ideal. You'd much rather sign him to a long-term deal, give him a small salary cap number for 2022, and then go out and get some reinforcements for the Super Bowl run, because you may lose Preston Smith or Zadarius Smith, obviously TBD on those guys, but yeah, I mean, no brainer. Davante Adams, number one on the list, and no brainer that the Packers won't let him get to.
But I do think the big problem with Davante Adams for the Packers is that he's going to want to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL. And you had DeAndre Hopkins get that really weird contract, that extension when he went to Arizona. So his new money average was like 27.2 million. And there is no, and then next down you have like Julio, who's making 22 or 23. So there's a humongous gap. And if Devonte wants to top DeAndre, which his agent will certainly argue that he should, because, Davante Adams carries that offense along with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what you do for the Packers. Do you give them $28 million per year? Or do you say, hey, let's find the middle ground? Here's 25, 24 mil per year.
I think that you could. So
Julio franchise him.
Julio Jones averages 22 per year and has the most guaranteed at 64. I think you could get him to 23 and get him over that total guaranteed number and say, like, I mean, and that would be your talking point, is that he has figure out a way where he gets the most guaranteed money per year or gets the most total guaranteed in the NFL. Right.
Right.
I don't know if it would be most guaranteed ever because Calvin Johnson had those huge contracts. Maybe it would be. I think that would be your talking point. If you can convince him not to go over 27.5, you're 100% right. The agent will want to do that. And I mean, I think 25 is probably the bare minimum asking price if you want to, or maybe 23. And maybe they look at it as DeAndre Hopkins' deal is a little bit different. Davante Adams has been averaging 14.5 over his last contract. $58 million for the full deal on that.
Oh yeah, he was completely underpaid, so that's why he's going to try and get every single cent possible in this.
He may be like, look, I want 28 million per year. Like, I'm a better receiver than DeAndre Hopkins at this point in our careers, and I don't think anyone could argue with that.
But then what if the Packers are like, yeah, did you see your franchise number, buddy? It's 18.4. That's what we're giving you. Could you imagine if they did that?
If you piss off Davante Adams, you run the risk of pissing off Aaron Rodgers. That's right. That's the one real problem there.
Which adds to like a layer to this negotiation.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like, you're not even dealing with Davante Adams and his agent. You're dealing with Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and his agent. Number 2 on the list for Patrick in this article, Tehran Armstead, the tackle for the Saints. This, I wouldn't put him above Adams, I guess, but man, you could make the case that this is a pretty big one for the Saints, who have $70 million in
negative.
It's negative $70 million salary.
They're in the red.
They're in the red. They're deep into they're in the maroon, buddy. And Armstead, I think it would be really tough to franchise tag him because of that salary cap situation. Now you can tag him and get cap compliant later if you wanted, and you could, in theory, tag him and then work out a deal, or tag him and rescind the tag. However, if you tag Tehran Armstead and he signs the tag, you are locked into that single year, and you don't work out a long-term deal. You are locked into, you have to be cap compliant pretty quickly. Like, and it makes it a lot harder because you would have that fully guaranteed number on the top of your setup. So it's a very tricky situation.
Yes, it is. And he also signed a contract to save them money a year or two ago that included voidable years, which complicates the Saints' ability to franchise tag him. And so basically what this means, we talked about how Davante Adams 100% is not going to hit the free agent market. It feels the opposite here, where there is going to be a star left tackle on the free agent market, because it doesn't seem like there's any way the Saints are going to be able to get something done before free agency starts with their salary cap situation. And so you're going to have a top 5 left tackle in the NFL out there that any team is going to be able to sign. So that makes things interesting.
And we saw in the last 2 Super Bowls how critical offensive line. I mean, you saw it throughout the whole playoffs, throughout the whole season, really, with Joe Burrow, throughout the whole last 2 years. Do you think Tehran Armstead is a guy that the Bengals would potentially be interested in going after?
We will be talking about somebody I think the Bengals go after. I don't think Armstead necessarily. I think they'll go after guards just because, they don't have all pro tackles, but Jonah Williams and Riley Reif, they got to fix the interior of their line, the guards in the center. So I do think they'll probably stay, especially at the price that Armstead is going to be charging. I mean, he's probably going to get $20 million per year. But, I think Armstead somewhere in Florida could be interesting. The Dolphins offensive line has been an absolute wreck. And obviously,
no, they've drafted guys as well.
Right. But if you want Tua to improve, you've got to give him a little bit of time to throw. You're not going to be able to find out what his ceiling is. And then I think Jacksonville would be an interesting landing spot because Cam Robinson, he played on the franchise tag this past season. We don't know what his future is. And if you're Jacksonville, you've got to think Trevor Lawrence has had this great left tackle. We've got to keep a great left tackle, whether it's Cam Robinson, whether that's
he's not great. I don't know
okay. Armstead would be an upgrade, is what I'm saying. And so if you put Armstead in there, you've got to build as much as you can around Trevor Lawrence. And if you're Doug Peterson, that's got to be your thought. And if you can go out and make a splash and land a guy like Armstead, then you got to do it.
Yeah, and that's really interesting too from a draft perspective because most mock drafts, and this is again just like doing, we get ahead of ourselves in this business, just like doing this. Just talking about this list before we have the franchise tag, before we know who's getting franchise tagged is a sort of a an operation of a bit of an operation of futility. Doing mock drafts before free agency concludes is also a bit of one because you're like, oh well, clearly the Jaguars are going to take a offensive lineman with the first overall pick, and they still might, even if they sign Tehran Armstead. But going out and giving Tehran Armstead a massive contract in free agency to come down to Jacksonville and protect Trevor Lawrence would then allow you, if you believe that Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau are better prospects than Evan Neal or Iquanu, my NC State guy, it would allow you to draft a pass rusher with the first overall pick and not sort of feel forced into having to take an offensive lineman. It would also allow you to draft one of those offensive linemen and maybe play them on the right side or slide them inside if you think that's where they would play best. So I think Jacksonville makes a ton of sense as a possibility there. The Bears could be a team that could sign Tehran Armstead. Maybe they need offensive line help pretty badly. You got a new regime in there. Maybe they're interested in beefing up that offensive line and trying to get, Justin Fields some help. Jason Peters probably likely to retire. I would think he's 40.
Yeah, he's getting up there in age.
He's not the long-term answer anyway. They did draft Tevin Jenkins previously, but play him at right side and bring in Tehran Armstead. I think Armstead makes a ton of sense for one of these teams with a young quarterback who's seen what happened to Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago, who saw what happened to Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl this year. You need to protect those young quarterbacks. You saw what happened to Trevor Lawrence. Chris Godwin tore his ACL late in the season. A franchise tag coming off a franchise tag year. You would think he'll be ready by the start of the season. It'll probably be close. Probably not ready by training camp. So sort of a tough situation for him. I mean, do they franchise? Maybe they franchise tag him again and just say, look, I know this isn't ideal, but it would be difficult to give Chris Godwin a massive deal in free agency without knowing exactly where he stands health-wise.
Yeah, and this is an interesting situation because of the injury, and Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times had basically what the Buccaneers are looking to do here is they want to sign Godwin to a long-term contract so they could possibly use the franchise tag on someone else. And, it feels like Godwin's been such a key player for them. He really didn't want to play under the franchise tag before, but he did it, kind of begrudgingly signed it. And so if you're the Buccaneers, you're thinking, all right, well, let's reward this guy with a long-term deal. But then this ACL tear kind of throws a wrench in things because you can't pay him $22 million a year coming off an ACL tear.
You can.
I mean, that's true. You can. But
so, I think though that you could say, hey, look, man, you're young. You're awesome. We love you. We want you back. We got to figure out the quarterback situation. We know the ACL thing is out there, but we trust you to work well in your rehab. They're the only team that doesn't really have to worry about, the physical, passing a physical type of situation because they've had him in the building, right? I mean, they certainly their doctors checked him out after the injury. I think you could figure out a way to get him in the Michael Thomas, Tyreek Hill range, $19 million over and maybe build in something where, there's a bonus, like, playing time bonuses, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's a way to do it if you're the Bucks. And I did see where Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times on Tuesday tweeted out that the NFL's window, blah, blah, blah. Ideally, the Bucks would like to reach a long-term deal with Chris Godwin, complicated by his ACL injury. That would enable them to use the tag on another free agent like Carlton Davis. Stay tuned. You just read that tweet, didn't you?
I did.
What was I doing?
I think you were looking at your NC State helmet and you were shining it. For those of us who weren't watching on YouTube.
And unfortunately, Debo's not recording this, so he can't edit it out. Fortunately, though, Debo's not
It
here.
makes it better, though. Now we know people understand how valuable Debo is when they listen to the podcast.
Yeah, I don't think he edited. No, he would like post something making fun of me when I did that. Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading. I can't listen and read. I'm like blushing. I'm so embarrassed.
Oh my God,
that was bad.
Yeah.
Sorry for the.
I
was trying to read contracts and I was reading an article. I was reading Jeff Kerr's article when whatever. Sorry.
Well, no, the thing is, when we're talking about all these, you could be franchise tags. So you have the franchise tag numbers in front of you. You have, hey, what if they sign a long-term deal? So you have the range of long-term deals. And there's so many things in front of us right now that it's like, it's easy to get lost.
When I stopped talking and you started talking, I was like trying to furiously absorb information and process some information. I just didn't listen to you at all.
Brinson checked out. He was mentally checked out.
I guess people who listen to this podcast are probably aware of that.
That's a full Brinson.
That's a pretty bad one, though.
I think, but overall, it feels like Godwin will return to the Buccaneers. Who
would you rather give a bunch of money to? Chris Godwin or Allen Robinson?
If I'm Tampa Bay or if I'm another NFL team?
Just any NFL team. Not the Bengals because they have tons of receivers, but
I don't know. I mean,
I think I'd rather go Godwin. I still like Robinson, but Godwin is he's really young. He's 25, man. Allen Robinson's young too, though. I mean, but Robinson 28. So I'll take the 25-year-old, even coming off the ACL tear, versus the 28-year-old who's had ups and downs, mostly because of Chicago. We get it. But I think that I think I would just rather have Godwin even with the ACL tear. I think he'll be.
Well, yeah, and let me be clear. Like Godwin to me is the better receiver, but the ACL tear is the thing that would scare me if I'm an NFL team looking to sign a guy to a long-term contract.
Right. I suppose that we could potentially see Robinson come back now that Nagy and Pace are gone.
Got rid of everybody in the front office that he doesn't like.
Yeah. I don't know though, man. He's probably tired of being in Chicago. I could actually see him going back to Jacksonville. Would that be weird?
I don't know. He had a front row seat to, playing the Packers every year. And then you have the Bears go out and hire a Packers guy to be their offensive coordinator, and Luke Getsy. And so maybe you have Getsy and sitting down saying, hey, look, here's what you saw what I did with Devonte Adams in Green Bay, or you saw what we did with Devonte Adams in Green Bay, our coaching staff. That's what we want to do with you here. So I do see a way where you could see Getsy talking him into staying or wanting to stay in Chicago.
Indianapolis could be a landing spot for him, but they don't really have a quarterback. Cleveland needs a wide receiver, but I think he'll be picky about where he goes in free agency because of.
What about the Raiders?
Oh, Raiders make a lot of sense.
Derek Carr,
Josh McDaniels. Yeah. They need some wide receivers. That would actually be a really good matchup. So yeah, that's a good landing spot. And again, I mean, think about what happened to Robinson the last time, because he left Jacksonville and was a free agent and signed with Chicago, and then was like, oh, I mean, like he got, he's just like, what have I done? I've made a huge mistake, just the way that the thing played out. So yeah, those two wide receivers would be interesting. Mike Williams would probably be. Let's talk about here. We should really just lump all these wide receivers together.
All of them.
Yeah. 3 more wide receivers who are hitting free agency: Mike Williams, Michael Gallup, Mike Williams of the Chargers, of course, Michael Gallup of the Cowboys, and Odell Beckham Jr. of the Rams. I would think, and we talked about Odell a lot, I would think Odell's the easiest match of this one. He said he wanted to come back to LA on a discount. Then he got hurt towards ACL in the Super Bowl. I have a hard time figuring. I just think he's going to go to LA, and it's either a 1 or a 2 year deal where with a bunch of incentives about, when you come back, how far we go in the playoffs, et cetera, that set him up for, that ease all those issues that you have to deal with coming back from an ACL tear that he suffered a week ago.
Right. And that's the whole thing, is that we saw how good the Rams are with Odell on the field. I mean, when he got there in November, there wasn't really much of a change because it seemed like he was still trying to get acclimated to that offense. December, it looked a lot better. By the time the playoffs rolled around, Odell was out there, just a huge part of their offense. I mean, I said on the Super Bowl podcast that I think if Odell Beckham plays all 4 quarters, that the Rams probably win that game by 2 touchdowns. And so he became such a dynamic part of the offense, opens things up for Cooper Kupp, and makes Matthew Stafford a better quarterback. So I think the Rams would be crazy not to re-sign him. But again, it's kind of like the Chris Godwin situation where you don't know when he's going to be available, especially because Odell's ACL tear happened so late. And, it's in mid-February. He's probably not going to be on the field for the first 2-3 weeks of the season. And so I think you are right. I think the answer is here. You give him a 1-year deal. Maybe that's what he wants so that he can, again, prove he's healthy. He'll put up huge numbers in the Rams offense, and then you cash in 2023.
The Chargers, I suppose, did the Chargers not pick up, or is this his 5th year? Has he played 5 years already? That can't be possible, right?
Who?
Mike Williams?
I didn't know.
Yeah, he has played 5 years. Golly, we're getting old.
There's no 5th-year option, Brinson. It's out the window.
But no, because he's already played 5 years.
Right.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking it was 4, and they hadn't picked it up. Is what I'm saying. Because that would have been possible. He
got 129 targets last year, which is insane.
That is a ton.
Like, you can't take that. I mean, I know they have Keenan Allen. I know they have a lot of guys in their offense, but
they don't have guys who are like Mike Williams, though.
Exactly.
You lose. I mean, aren't they going to just franchise tag him?
I would think they have to.
I would think he's getting franchise tagged. If not, the Raiders could make sense. The Jaguars, I guess. Did he play with Trevor Lawrence in Clemson? Did Mike Williams go to Clemson? I'm not crazy, right?
You are crazy, but yes, he also did go to Clemson.
Yeah, I was going to say he did go to Clemson. I can't remember if he played with Trevor Lawrence, but the timeline, I don't think it crossed over. I think he was with Watson. Again, we mentioned these teams: Cleveland, the Colts. All these teams that have needs at wide receiver would make a lot of sense. I would predict that he ends up coming back to the Chargers, because if you let him walk and he has a monster season with another team and Justin Herbert takes a step back,
and especially if he has a monster season, like you mentioned with the Raiders, a team in your division.
Yeah. And you finish behind the Raiders and in the division, that would not go over well.
Nope.
How about Gallup? Because I think there's a chance that they tag him and cut Amari Cooper. With the CD, when they drafted CeeDee Lamb and you looked at Amari Cooper's contract, it made it look like they were going to make a decision on whether they wanted to go with Gallup or Cooper. And I think that sort of, if the Cowboys tag him, then there's a chance that they cut Amari Cooper. But maybe more likely that they keep Cooper around and let Michael Gallup hit free agency, right?
Yeah, I don't think, it just depends what his asking price is going to be, because this is not somebody who should be, it'll be surprising if he gets over like 16 or 17 million per season, because he's not that caliber of receiver just yet. And you look at what the Cowboys had this season. It wasn't just.
He's also dealing with injury too, by the way.
Right. He missed, how many games?
He tore his ACL late in the year.
He missed 8 games. He was dealing with a leg injury, so he missed 8 games. And you had Cedric Wilson came in and played pretty well for the Cowboys. He actually finished with more receiving yards than Michael Gallup last season. And so, I think they probably like having CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper as your clear-cut 1 and 2. And so at that point, I think that makes your number 3 guy expendable. And especially if you already have someone like Cedric Wilson under contract who can fulfill that role. So I think the Cowboys will try to re-sign him, but I don't think it's going to be a situation where they're, trying to break down the door and giving into his contract demands. I don't think we'll see that.
Gallup also was asked about possibly taking a shorter deal. He said, I think somebody could give me a long-term deal. And I think if I need to prove it again, I'm pretty sure I can do that too. So he would be willing to take a shorter deal to sort of prove it and get back out into free agency. Maybe that would even make sense with the Cowboys again, if they wanted to try and pull that off, and didn't want to deal with the with the franchise tag.
And again, it's so weird that we have all these guys coming off ACL injuries between Godwin and Odell and Gallup, because of those injuries, you almost, as the receiver, you almost feel inclined to, you know what, I'm going to go to the offense I know, because you can't get on the field till August or September or October, and you don't have time to learn an entirely new offense. And so you want to stick with what you're comfortable with for at least a year. So yeah, again, I think like Odell and like Godwin, it won't be surprising if he ends up returning to Dallas for 1 year, but at the Cowboys price.
2 offensive linemen made the top 10 list for free agent. 2 more offensive linemen, I should say. Orlando Brown checking in at number 8 and Brandon Sherf at number 9. I actually think Brown should probably be higher on this list if I were nitpicking, particularly because he's not a bigger name, but I mean, OBJ and Godwin and I'm taking Orlando Brown over Gallup and OBJ in terms of like value as a free agent. And I think the Chiefs will too. And I feel 100% confident that the Kansas City Chiefs will franchise tag Orlando Brown. They traded first round picks for him. They are not going to just let him walk after giving up, that kind of assets to grab him. And he wanted to play left tackle, didn't want to play right tackle, couldn't do that with Ronnie Stanley in Baltimore. So they traded him, and the Chiefs really like him, and they know the value of the offensive line and how important it was. They lost to the Bucs in the Super Bowl, went out and, made all these moves, grabbed Tooney, signed, traded for Brown to try and revamp that offensive line. I don't think we need to talk about him because I think it's a guarantee they tag him.
Yeah. And like you said, they just gave up too much compensation to let him walk after this season. So there's I will be shocked if Orlando Brown hits free agency. This feels like a situation where you either tag him or you get the long-term contract done, but obviously you tag him because then you have 5 more months to get the long-term. You have until July to get the long-term deal done. And, it's not going to be cheap because you're looking at, I think, numbers just over 16.7 million for an offensive lineman.
Yep.
And so, that's not cheap, but you know what? You want to tackle, you want a starting level tackle in the NFL who's good, you got to pay.
And honestly, I think there's a pretty good chance too that they work out a long-term deal with him because they have Mahomes in place. They signed Joe Tooney to a huge deal. They draft Creed Humphrey.
Right.
They want to get a consistent Andy Reid understands the value of having a consistent high-level offensive line in front of Patrick Mahomes. So I would be pretty surprised if he wasn't locked up. I'm trying to think where I was looking at because Pro Football Focus does the projection or predictions of the contracts. 5 years, $105 million with the Chiefs is their prediction. 73.5 million guaranteed. Whew!
So 21 million a year.
Yeah, and he's their number 9 free agent on their list. So checks in actually, and they do offense and defense for what it's worth. All right, Brandon Sherf, franchise tag last year. Now
we don't even have the conversation. The Bengals should just give him a blank check, fly to Cincinnati in a private jet, and don't let him leave. That's it. That's that conversation over. Bengals are getting him. That's how this has to go.
That's what you want that to happen.
That is, and what I was saying was that I don't think the Bengals necessarily, because they're not the kind of team that's going to go out and make a huge splash in free agency. If they do anything, they usually go after, they target 1 or 2 players. We saw them sign Trey Hendrickson last offseason, DJ Reader the offseason before that. So they know their weaknesses and they go out and target 1 or 2 guys. And when you're talking about the best guard on the market, it's Sherf. As you said, he's already been franchise. Washington's not going to franchise tag him because it would be considerably way too much money because he's already been tagged twice, right? Or am I crazy? But whatever it is, you get a bump if you get tagged once, you get 100%.
Yeah, you're right. They did tag him twice.
Right. So
they can't. He's a free agent. He's not getting tagged. They would have to pay him. They have to give him like quarterback salary.
144% bump of what he made last year with the 3rd tag. So he's gone.
Or the equivalent of the quarterback, like the quarterback tag, which is just outrageous. So
almost 30 million.
Yeah. So he is definitely hitting free agency, and I think the Bengals make a lot of sense. You could also, I think you could also look at the Dolphins as a possible landing spot. The Chargers.
Well, it feels like there's going to be a long line of people interested in Sherf.
Sherf is going to get real paid in free agency as a result of playing out 2 years in a row on the franchise tag. Like, we've seen this with the Washington football team a lot. The Jaguars could make sense as well, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if they got Sherf and Armstead, and now you have this super offensive line, and now Trevor Lawrence has no excuse but to be the best quarterback.
And you draft an offensive lineman with the first overall pick, and you just have. I mean, that would be sort of. That's not a crazy thing to do.
And it looks like the highest paid right guard was Sherf at $18 million, because that was his second tag last year.
And he is 31, by the way.
Yeah, you get him for 3 or 4 seasons, and then
it's like a 5-year deal.
He's good for at least one more contract, and then after that, you fill it out from there. But there's no other right guards in the NFL making over $14.2 million. He made $18 million, so just a huge jump. And it'll be interesting to see what his expectations are for a contract, because is he gonna say, yeah, I'll take $15 million per year because I'm still the highest paid over multiple years, or is he gonna be like, I got paid $18 million last year, I want that level for multiple years? So
I think he'll take something in the range of like 15 to 17 million.
And
maybe something over 15, but I think just because of where the market is, he won't be able to get. I mean, you're just not going to get $18 million unless you just get a complete bidding war.
Well, it feels like that could happen.
Yeah, that's true. What did Tooney get last year? Batonio actually beat out Tooney. I forgot about that. Tooney got 80 million, 16 points in even 16 million per year. So I think Sherf can ask to beat the average that Batonio and Tooney got, which is $16 million. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, definitely. And those are, I kind of separated because Batonio's kind of more plays left guard and Sherf right guard and separates. And so the pay is a little bit different. But yeah, Tooney and Batonio, both 16. I think he's going to be the highest paid guard.
Asked to get paid as the highest paid guard, and don't give me that left-right stuff.
Right.
Okay. I think that's what he'll say, not what we're saying. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, the rest of the list. I forgot to do Jameis Winston too, but that's okay. We'll mention Jameis Winston, and Jameis Winston was 10th on the list for Patrick Walker here, and then Rob Gronkowski, Dalton Schultz, James Conner, Christian Kirk, DJ Chark, Mike Gesicki, David Njoku, Cordero Patterson, whole list of guys all the way to 25. I mean, Jameis is 10th because he's a quarterback. I don't think that Jameis. I thought Jameis' season was disappointing last year. And I realized he got hurt and the Saints were much better when he was there, but I didn't think he was as, that first game, it was like, oh, we might be getting great Jameis. And then it just sort of,
Brinson, he beat Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady.
That's true.
Yeah.
Quarterback wins, baby. I think it makes a lot of sense for Jameis to come back to New Orleans. Don't know if it actually happens, but I think it could make some sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, coming off an injury, do you want to go in and learn a whole new offense when you're going to be spending most of your time rehabbing to start that off? And that, especially, we talked about with receivers, when you're a quarterback, there's so much to learn that it's easier to just go with what you already know, because you don't want to be worrying about learning that new offense from March until July when you're also trying to rehab and make yourself get healthy. So yeah, I think the Saints make the most sense, but it'd be hilarious if he ended up back in Tampa Bay, and taking over for Teddy in Denver would be interesting. But I think the Saints do make the most sense.
I think the Saints make a lot of sense. Rob Gronkowski, he said he could keep playing without Tom Brady. I have a hard time. Unless Tom is coming back, I think Gronk's gone. I think
gone like retiring?
Yeah, he already retired.
You know what? You know what he said before the Super Bowl? If there's one quarterback he'd be willing to play with right now, Joe Burrow.
Did he really say that?
He said that.
You think he's coming to Cincinnati? Jeez, that would make your heart so full.
That would be, Gronk would be, because he blocks too.
He'd be a perfect addition for the Bengals.
It would be insane how perfect it would be. I don't even want to think about it because I'll cry. I'll get too excited and then it won't happen and then I'll cry. We don't need that.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
If he was willing to do like a 1-year deal, and that would be spicy. He would help that team tremendously. It's a perfect fit because they need help at tight end. He's a great blocker in both the run game and the pass game. It's just, and boy, wouldn't that say something about the Bengals too, where if they were able to enticed Rob Gronkowski to playing for him because the guy's only played with Tom Brady, just only like retired, and then Pat tried to trade him the Lions. He told him, "F you, no way I'm going."
And now he wants to go to Cincinnati. That would be hilarious.
So bizarre. What a world. Dalton Schultz on the list makes sense as well. I think more of a pass catcher than a blocker, but certainly, if the Bengals wanted to go after that, I think the idea that James Conner and Christian Kirk are both on this list is pretty spicy in this, and not that they're, and Zach Ertz too. 3 Cardinals skill guys. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are in this little spat about the contract right now. I don't think Kyler Murray's going anywhere. Too valuable, young quarterback. He's going to get paid eventually, but man, that would make things a little bit interesting if 3 of his guys hit free agency and left, and all of a sudden you're Kyler and you're like, just be clear, like you're taking away all of my weapons.
You're bringing in these new guys that he doesn't have chemistry with, and presumably he'll get DeAndre Hopkins back, and he's a much better quarterback with Hopkins on the field. But still, you take away 3 weapons in a year where your quarterback's complaining about you or scrubbing you from his Instagram in public. Mm-hmm. That seems like a no-no. Who wants to be the general manager? Who wants to be Steve Keim calling up Kyler and saying, "Hey, man, look, we know you're not happy with us right now, and so, but yeah, we're not resigning these guys. So just delete your Instagram because we're done."
AJ Green was only he's a free agent too, man.
A lot of guys.
That is a situation that maybe I think maybe this might be an undersold part of Kyler Murray's unhappiness, is the idea that, even though he still got DeAndre Hopkins, if they lose all these guys, it would not go over well with the quarterback, I wouldn't think. And I guess they do have Rondo Moore too, but Christian Kirk's a tough sell. Not as productive as I think they thought that he would be. Who else on this list strikes your fancy, Breech?
I think that Cordero Patterson is, just because he had such a huge year and it looked like someone figured out how to unlock him in Atlanta with Arthur Smith. And so I think the Falcons would be crazy to let him go because he played such a big part of their offense. But if they did, and you're another team, because you have all these teams, they're looking at Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, what he's doing with Deebo Samuel, and the Falcons, what they're doing with Cordero Patterson. You have these athletes who can just be superstars because they play multiple positions. And so if he were to leave, that would be interesting to see what he would do. And let's see, I'm just kind of going. I think Gesicki is also, he's been a really good tight end. He's never played with a great quarterback. And so if you put him with someone who just is a step up from what he's been playing with, maybe he puts up some huge numbers.
I mean, he's so athletic, a great end zone weapon, great red zone weapon, really. And you do feel like he's been misused or at least underused by the Dolphins. I actually think that there's a really good chance that they franchise tag him.
Yeah.
Unless there's somebody else on the Dolphins roster that I'm missing that's an obvious free agency ad. But you got this, you got Mike McDaniel, new head coach. You got a GM who wants to make it look like, it wasn't a Brian Flores thing while they were winning. You tag Mike Gesicki, you go out and maybe pay for a offensive lineman, unless you think Eichenberg and Austin Jackson are ready to roll, or maybe you kick. I mean, maybe you can go get Armstead, you tag Gesicki, and all of a sudden you're like, we're all in on Tua, and you have Mike McDaniel. So I mean, I think that'll be something that they're definitely interested in. Tight end's a key place.
And Gesicki's been putting up huge numbers, even though his quarterbacks have been Ryan Tannehill. This is Tannehill Dolphins, not Titans Tannehill. Yeah. Brock Osweiler for a few games that season. Josh Rosen for 3 games in 2019. Wow. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tua. So he just hasn't had great quarterbacks to work with. And the other part is, to franchise a tight end, it doesn't cost you much money.
Dude, you know what? We can move on from him because they're definitely franchise tagging.
Right. And even Dalton Schultz could end up getting franchised because the tag is so low. It's under $11 million for a tight end.
That's a good call on Dalton Schultz. I'm just looking at Dallas. They have Connor Williams as a free agent who could potentially be, second rounder in 2018. Randy Gregory, who is probably gonna be looking to get paid, especially now that he's been bouncing
back and forth. Don't spoil our defensive free agents podcast. My goodness.
Yeah, my bad. That'll be tomorrow. All right. It's a good point. I think David Njoku is a nice little buy low for somebody.
Yeah, I do think he could be big.
where you feel like he's just been misused or miscast and underappreciated in Cleveland. He's an athletic freak. Patterson, as you mentioned, is interesting, but it's also like if you give Cordero Patterson a bunch of money and then don't you better use him like the Falcons did, or else you're wasting.
Right. If you don't have a creative offensive coordinator, just stay away.
Yeah. Will Fuller will sign a 1-year deal somewhere. I'll overdraft him in fantasy. And
Melvin Gordon, we got him on the list. He's interesting.
Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, both on the list, and James Conner. I mean, there's just classic veteran running backs who will screw up your fantasy team next year. I thought Melvin Gordon looked good. I thought Melvin Gordon with the Broncos looked pretty good. I mean, I'm not going to go out and give him a ton of money, but if I have a team that lacks a punch in the running game or needs a nice complementary weapon, somebody who can eat up some carries, I think all three of these guys make a lot of sense. And we saw Fournette with the Bucks. I mean, playoff Lenny's a real thing. I would guess that he's willing to go somewhere else, but maybe he likes living in Tampa.
And he won't have to playoff Lenny. Maybe he could just keep living in Tampa if he signs with the Dolphins and fly to work. Because the Dolphins, if there's one team that needs running backs, it's the Miami Dolphins. I would not be surprised if one of those three guys, Gordon or playoff Lenny or James Conner, ends up in Miami.
I want to say that nope. Melvin Gordon's from Wisconsin, so there you go. And went to Wisconsin, but I was just looking to see if he had any Miami connections. That could make a lot. Yeah, I could see. That's a good point. I think, although I'd be curious to see how McDaniel wants to handle it. With Kyle Shanahan, they always end up, getting the sort of, the running backs who are, like a late round running back. But yeah, I mean, they definitely need.
But if you don't have anybody in there yet, you sign a proven guy, and then you look for those late round gems and hope that they can pan out. But I think you got to have someone in there you can use before you go that route.
It's pretty wild to see JuJu Smith-Schuster as number 25. I mean, if you had told somebody that
2 years ago,
was it 2 or 3 years ago? I mean, it's just his fall from. It was like he was like considered one of the best, like maybe like the number one dynasty ad, right? Or like the number one young wide receiver. He was definitely on Bleeperson's under 25 list.
Yeah.
Look that up. Under 25.
I mean, we're talking in 2020, he almost had 100 receptions. And then completely fell off the radar.
Let's see. NFL.
Because he's doing too much TikToking. Isn't that what the people say?
Yeah, let's see. For 2019, June 5th, 2019. I mean, he's definitely on this, right? Number 23, actually. Under 25. That's lower than I would have expected. Right?
And now he's 25 out of 25 on our list of best offensive free agents.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy. Fall from grace for JuJu Smith-Schuster. He'd be a nice little value. Nice little first, 1 year.
Yeah, if he's not demanding too much money, you take a flyer on him. That's a guy you absolutely take a flyer on.
Absolutely. You see like Belichick take a flyer on him or something like that.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. That'll do it for the top offensive players. There's somebody we missed. Tweet at us and let us know. And I'm sure you will. But
and we may or may not get back to you because Brinson and I are both doing our Panchakarma cleanses this week, right, Brinson?
That's right. Yeah, go get some Panchakarma, Breech, and I'll be back with Tyler Sullivan tomorrow for the defensive players, top 25 defensive players in free agency for Breech. I'm Brinson. See you guys later.